keep the watts as low as we can, because the end of this race is going to be all of the matches required, every single one of them.
And we are back for another episode of Dead Last Cycling. This week's race was important because the past few weeks have really not gone to plan, both in racing and in training. I needed to put in a good performance to try and kickstart a little mini comeback.
Alright fellas, Mech Island Mayhem. No more Tour fever. We're back out on the roads of Makuri. And I have heard this one can be bugged. It looks like I've got the longer route. There's some people are getting 18 kilometers, some people are getting 20. This one, for once, looks pretty flat, but that does not mean it's going to be easy.
Zwift races are never easy. It doesn't matter how flat a route is, there will always be a few evil riders trying to rip your legs off.
Now, in the last 2 weeks, I've only managed to get in 3 hours of riding each week. So that could be a good thing. I must be fully recovered at this point, both from fatigue of training and from being ill. So we'll see how the legs respond to that reduced volume. Got a lot of strong sprinters in here, I've seen. Our mate Gledison's in here, he's got a good kick on him. Wesley Ingham's got a vicious sprint on him as well.
That's Wesley with a T, not Wesley. I'm terrible with names, my apologies. But regardless of who you're up against, and even when you're alone, you've got to at least try to sprint for a finish line. So that was the plan today. Ride as conservatively as I could, and then drop the hammer. What little hammer I've got in the final few hundred meters.
Big James from Zwift has curated something a bit different for us today, because there's a ghost power-up available, which I've just got. Now what that does is that makes you invisible. I'm not sure for how long, I think 15 seconds, 10 seconds.
I don't need to repeat that I'm really not a fan of power-ups, but the Ghost one is at least a change up from the usual feather versus draft van combo that we get. Granted, for me, it was not one I was thinking of making any use of, as I have no illusions of riding away from the peloton, but that wasn't true for everyone.
We've got a guy that's just been riding off solo the entire race so far. He's not really getting away, but we're not really bringing him back. Maybe he's just freakishly strong or freakishly stupid. Who knows?
The other option, obviously, is that he was just in the race to try to get a good workout in with a bit of added motivation of a pack chasing him, which can happen. But either way, he would not be staying away on this route.
If that little rise, the corkscrew climb at the end, was closer to the finish, I think this Ghost power-up would be pretty cool.
Long-time viewers might remember that last time I raced up that corkscrew climb, I tried to attack for the finish up and over it, only to get caught with 100 meters or so by the charging pack. Maybe if I had a Ghost on that day, I could have got the job done.
So last week, the problem I had was that as soon as I had to push at all, I just never recovered aerobically. Let's see what happens today.
Now we'd done the first little climb of the day, my heart rate had ramped up, and I was a little worried that it might sit in the low to mid 170s for minutes and minutes again. But fairly quickly, as that little squeeze on the pedals passed, I was able to catch my breath much more easily than last week, and my heart rate started to gradually tick back down. Things were looking good, or at least not bad.
Really try to stay efficient today.
One part of staying efficient was going to be securing a feather for each side of the corkscrew climb. It's a short climb that on most routes would barely register, but it was the biggest lump we had to deal with today, and I wanted to have every advantage I could get. I managed to secure a feather for it, but not everyone was so lucky.
A couple of people ghosted off the front. Just doesn't, like with this route, you'd have to be so strong to stay away. Especially against 50 people, 40 people.
You could say you'd have to be too strong to be able to stay away. We were about to hit the corkscrew, and I was really not paying attention to my position, so as we hit the dusty roads of the climb, I was at the back, coasting, and not ready to tailgun through the group as I usually like to do at the start of these climbs.
Wasn't really paying attention there. Was changing over the water bottle.
So yeah, not exactly the efficiency that I'd been planning. I wasn't going to get dropped here, there was no danger of that, but I did have to squeeze quite a bit harder than I wanted. But between the demented breathing, I did spot a familiar face and friend of the channel.
Big breaths. What up, Thomas?
Thomas, I believe, was racing up a category today, so definitely a strong effort by him to stick with the pack.
Bit harder of an effort than I wanted because I was sleeping, but it should be fine. Look how long we've got until the next one, really.
I was feeling pretty good about my recovery at this point and not too worried about having to put out a few more watts than I needed to on that little climb, as we had miles and miles of wheel sucking ahead of us. This was now just about getting another feather and staying focused.
Another feather. I think I'll save that for the corkscrew.
I had the feather I wanted, but someone had managed to smuggle in a draft fan.
Wait, that guy's a draft. How did he get that?
How did he get that indeed? And we'll have more on that later. But as I said, this part of the race was for staying focused and sticking to the plan.
Keep the watts as low as we can, because the end of this race is going to be all of the matches required, every single one of them. We're going to need at least half of them to get over corkscrew, then the rest of them at the finish. To try to help with the finish, I've gone full aero setup. I'm on the Canyon Aero 2024, disc wheels, the lot. So, whilst I might resemble more of like a sail in real life, in the game, I can be an aero bullet.
That's got to be one of the bigger advantages to me of being able to race on Zwift, because in real life I am perhaps the most unaerodynamic rider on the roads, so a real life race would be a struggle, and that's before we get to the limits of my bike handling. We were meandering across the flats, in theory a nice gentle calm period before the all-out storm at the end, but some people were clearly getting bored.
We've had a lot of people dangling off the front this race. To each their own, but I could never do it.
Not only could I never do it, I could probably never pull people like that back either. Some people might not be a fan of that, but there are no domestiques in Zwift racing. It's everyone for themselves, and if you burn up your matches pulling back attacks, then you'll only end up paying for it later. Even without helping out, and with the copious amounts of flat, I was starting to feel this race.
I swear, man, every Zwift race feels hard.
They do all feel hard, but we didn't have long to go, and all we had left to tackle was 90 seconds of controlled effort up the corkscrew, and then a very uncontrolled all-out sprint afterwards. At least hopefully. For the corkscrew climb, I wanted to push on the descent that leads into it, and then do my best to stay in the first third of the group up the climb to make sure I wasn't having to work too much over the top. So far, so good, but a lot of people were using their feather, and I was in two minds. It felt like I could probably survive this without needing it, but I decided it was probably better to have used it and not needed it than needed it and not used it, because whilst watts per kilogram do matter in a flat sprint, they don't matter that much.
Maybe I didn't need the featherweight there, I don't know.
In reflection, I'm still not sure whether I saved more kick by using it, or if I'd have ended up net faster by saving it. We'll never know. What I did know was that I felt good enough to sprint today. I wasn't expecting to compete for a win, but a first top 10 in this upper band of Cat B might be possible.
3 kilometers for me, maybe 1 for some other people.
And this was a real concern. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these races this week were bugged, with a lot of riders having a finish line after 18 kilometers. All this would be for naught if half the group finished early, and as the pace picked up towards 2 kilometers, it looked like that might be the case. But thankfully, our group was one of the lucky ones, because as we rolled past 2 kilometers, everyone kept riding, and the person who had sprinted off the front turned out to just be a long-range attacker. That meant one thing: the sprint was on, and I was locked in. No more time for talking. The pace was picking up, and I needed to make sure I stayed in good position. With a group this big, it can be difficult to time when to go, as people are bound to jump early, and I wanted to make sure I didn't get left with too much to do. The plan was to try to stay around 10th wheel, and in the saddle for as long as I could before going all out. But like Mike Tyson once said, everyone has a plan until the sprint starts. 4th place and a massive improvement over the past few weeks. And you might have noticed 2nd place had somehow managed to get his hands on a draft power-up. Very cheeky.
4th. We're back. Probably went too early, but we're back. Chapeau on the podium, Wesley. We're back. Oh man. Oh, it was hard. I am pleased with that. Said I went too early. 75 meters so too early. Held on well though. I'm pleased with that. That's a good comeback. Doesn't look like anybody really bugged out, or maybe 1 or 2 people did. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, I massively appreciate the support. If you can like, comment, or subscribe, I'll be very grateful. And now we're back into the swing of things. Get back to training properly. And we're going to get our first podium in this category band. I'll see you guys next week.